Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Virginia City Council Chambers. This is a meeting of the Committee of the Whole. It is a regularly scheduled Committee of the Whole meeting. I will call this meeting to order. It's 9 a.m. Today's date is Tuesday, January 5th, 2021. We have a full agenda today, and so on Zoom we have our City Clerk Pamela Bean, Councilor Julianne Paulson, and Councilor Maya Beyondich. Is there anyone else on the line on Zoom, Britt? Eric Wedge and our Architecture of the Miners Project, and Betsy Olivanti, with the Northland Foundation. On behalf of the Carlsons, okay, thank you very much. And in the audience today, we have our Scott Duranko from Virginia Public Works. We have Brian Silber, our Park and Rec Director. We have Brian Lindsay, our City Attorney. We have our Public Works Director, Bill Hennis, and Britt Sibinis, our City Administrator, and Sherry Erickson, our Finance HR Director. So we'll call this meeting to order. We'll go to item number 1, appearances. Brian Percat regarding residential parking on 10th Street South. We all received a letter in that regard.
He is coming to the meeting. He's running a little late, so he asked if we could go around him for now.
Okay, thank you, Britt. Let's move to item 2 on the agenda. Tanya and Steve Carlson regarding the request for the city to act as a fiscal agent for the DIRR grant for the Greens on the 14th project, which is a very exciting project. And Steve and Tanya, would you like to come forward and give us a little update on your project, how it's moving forward, and we'll act on this request. You just come out for here right to the podium, and if you turn on the podium light to green. And welcome to the City Council, and we're excited about your project, and if you could just give us a little history.
Sure. So back the end of August, we were planning on going mini golfing as a family and a little pressed for time, and I had thought about the fact that we had to drive to where we were going, and then Steve and I had been thinking about something that we could do. Just COVID hit and our job situations changed, and it just dawned on me, and I said we could look into building a miniature golf course in Virginia. And from then, we started researching pretty heavily, looking into different companies that do this. There are professional companies out there that build miniature golf courses, and essentially they build them to be they're different than they were 20, 30 years ago. And we had found a company that we wanted to work with, and we've been working with them since early September. We've got a plan drawn up. We have signed an agreement with them, and we've been working with trying to find contractors in the local area to work with us to kind of put this all together. So we've got that in place. We are hoping to head to the bank sometime this month to request funding, and as well request a grant from IRRR for infrastructure.
Thank you very much. And so you're here today to request that the city act as a fiscal agent in the application of $222,000 for infrastructure improvement for your project.
Correct.
Very good, thank you. Let's go to the council. Any questions, comments, or concerns regarding this request to act as a fiscal agent? Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you both for being creative and doing this. It's one of those things that, you're right, we have to drive just to be able to mini golf, and it's a big summer thing. And I appreciate you making the effort, and I will make a motion that we approve the resolution to act as the fiscal agent moving forward.
Thank you. It's moved to approve the request to act as the fiscal agent for the project for Tanya and Steve Carlson. Is there support?
I'll support. Go ahead, Gary.
I'll support.
Okay, moved by Councilor Johnson, supported by Councilor Friedlieb. Is there any further discussion? And I see that we have on the line Betsy Olivanti, who you've spoken to regarding this project as well, and she's been a real asset to all of us and businesses moving forward. So thank you for reaching out to her.
Yes, we've been working with her very closely for the past 4 months, yes.
Well, fantastic. So it's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Mayor, I do think, just had somebody on the phone and they just took off, so I think we're good to go. Sorry.
Okay, very good. So we'll move to item 3 on the agenda under personnel, the expiration of the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. This was held over from the special council meeting of 12/29/2020, where we extended up to this date, or till when? Till January 9th, so we're here to discuss that. And I think what I'd like to do is ask our staff about this moving forward. There's a cost associated with this, or whatever the case may be. So I would first ask Britt or Sherry about this and what is the city's obligation and costs moving forward, and what is in the budget to accommodate this, if there is any. First of all, before we do that, Councilor Johnson has his light on.
I'll wait.
Okay, thank you. Britt?
Thank you. I did a little look back just because we were asked some questions about how much we have spent to date and such. So I did a little synopsis in the packet, talks about emergency paid leaves. What the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, or the FFCRA, is, and what it required is that emergency paid sick leave be paid up to 80 hours for all employees, well, full-time employees, for numerous reasons. So there's 6 reasons listed. One of them is employees under official quarantine or isolation. Employee has been advised by a healthcare provider to self-quarantine. Employees experiencing COVID symptoms. Employees caring for an individual under official quarantine or isolation. Employee is caring for a son or daughter under 18 because the school has been closed or child care provider is unavailable, or the employee is experiencing substantially similar conditions. So this had started on April 1st as required by federal law, and we had run through December 31st. At the last special meeting we had at the end of the month in December, we extended it to January 9th to cover those that were currently out on COVID leave or suspected of having COVID. These leaves were not, we were not allowed to take out anybody else's pay out of any other leave bank, so they were not allowed to use sick time or comp time or anything for these. We were required to give them this time as required by the federal government. Payment earned from these leaves, there's a after 80 hours, if you go over, there's a 2/3 emergency family medical leave that kicks in. And then the employee, we had to offer the option for that 1/3 to be made up however the employee wanted it, through comp, through sex. I think this is successfully, we've only had, I believe, 2 employees that have gone past the 80 hours. Most of them have recovered. That goes to my next slide, or the slides that are in the packet, the pie chart and the bar graph. As you can see, we have had quite a few, 66 of our employees that have used the FFCRA leave in some way, shape, or form. Some were for daycare, some were for quarantine, some were for isolation, because we did have positive employees. We do have, just for edification, we do have 125 total employees, so a little over half of our employees have used it. What we expended from April 1st to December 26th was $112,348. We did reimburse ourselves through the CARES Act through all the leave expended through November. If you look at the bar chart, unfortunately, November was our highest month of positive COVID cases, known COVID cases in the city, as well as daycare closures and school closures. Total hours that were utilized of the FFRCA, 4,112 hours total. The question was asked at me at the last meeting, how much do I think it's going to cost? And it's hard to say. We know that statewide and countywide, there's a dramatic decrease of COVID positive cases. We know that half of or at least half of our employees have tested positive. We know we have some employees who never got tested but experienced symptoms that suspect they did have it. They just quarantined and didn't take the test. They weren't obligated to. So it's hard to estimate what it would cost if we extended it to January 30th. But I do think it's kind of goes to what we were speaking about last time, is the letting the employees know we care and we don't want you to come to work if you're sick. I have had a conversation with Scott Duranko, AFSCME president. He is here and he'd like to speak, if that's okay, on this matter.
Sure.
Mayor,
Can you hang on just one moment? You'll be next. Is there anything further?
That is all I have. Thank you.
Okay.
And I just wanted to point out that if you look at I did throw the county slide in there for the year, just to
Right.
kind of correlate where the city was with the county. And of course, the county spike was in November and our city spike was in November. So
Sure, certainly. Sherry? We're good? Counselor Bearable.
I just got a question, Britt. You mentioned that the cases are up. That's not true. The cases are down in St. Louis County right now, are way down.
I said they were up in November and they have had a serious decrease.
Serious, statewide, they've had a serious.
Yes, I did say statewide and countywide
And
there
now
was a
we've got
decrease.
the vaccines coming, and we're gonna have a venue for the vaccines in Virginia. I'm having a hard time with the cost on this to go forward, but I'll mention that later here. It's not that I don't like our employees, because I've always been supportive of our employees, but we've got to take a look at the things that are coming and how this thing can be stemmed, which it's going to be in the near future. So that's just my comment right now.
Okay, thank you. Before we go to Scott, we'll go to Counselor Johnson. I would like to see that too. Okay, Scott, would you mind coming forward, and if the green light isn't on, turn on the green light, and welcome to the City Council meeting, and we'd like to hear your thoughts.
Good morning, everybody. I guess my thoughts on this is it's been really nice that it's been happening, and out of the Public Works, there's only been 4 of us that have tested positive. Most of it's being used through the FMLA or through the child care or whatever you want to say to take up that thing, which is right now 2/3 of your pay and then 1/3 coming out of your sick leave. So we are having sick leave. But we can only carry 20 days of sick leave in our bank. That's it. That's our maximum. So if we have to quarantine for 10 days or 14 days, it's pretty much going to eat it up, is how we're looking at it. And there is some people that are out right now, and there has been not suggestions, I should say, there has been people that have said that if they get sick and they're out of sick leave, they're just going to come into work. We don't want that. By all means, none of us want that, because we've actually been formally lucky in Public Works pertaining to people getting sick and quarantining. So I guess, and the cases are down right now, but I watched the news last night and got depressed afterwards, naturally. You got the UK strain that's coming in at 70% more contagious than the strain we have now. Now they're calling it the African strain. So we can take it all with a grain of salt. And being that it's going down right now, I just would like to see that the employees are somehow taken care of. I don't know how, in one way or another. If we could go where they have to test positive and then maybe get reimbursed for something on their sick leave, I'm not sure. But there is people out there that are out of sick leave, so that's when we're going to run into a problem.
Thank you, Scott.
Yep.
You want to hang on just for a moment in case we have some questions
bet.
for you? Thank you very much. Counselor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is one of those times where there's no precedence for this, and I think we need to be taking care of our folks. Just because we extended it to the 9th so that we could have a discussion today. And my proposal is going to be that we extend it for a month. We review it at the Committee of the Whole on the 2nd, and then we can let it expire or renew it on the 9th. Again, knowing there's a new administration coming in on January 20th, and the power of the executive order has been used greatly over the last 4 years. It could be used starting January 2nd to prolong this, and I think that we really need to make sure that our employees know that if they think they have COVID, they need to stay home and be safe and keep the rest of us safe. If a City Hall employee decides to come to work because they don't have any or can't use any of the general public that comes in could be in danger. So I'm not going to make the motion yet, but that's what I'm going to be recommending, is that we extend this one to the Committee of the Whole, to the first council meeting in February, but we review it the week before so we know what's going on. And we just do this month by month so that we can make sure that our employees who are sick are staying home, and our employees who are comfortable coming to work. I think it works both ways. I don't want, if someone sneezes in the library, I don't want everybody else being worried that maybe they're at work because they don't have any sick pay. So that's where I am, and I will stand firm on that.
Thank you, Counselor Johnson. Let's go to the phone line and see if Counselor Paulson, do you have any questions or comments regarding this?
Thank you, Mayor. I just really want to say thank you to Britt for putting all the information together in the graphs. I would probably be leaning more toward Counselor Johnson's recommendation, and I would feel comfortable going on a month-by-month basis, especially since the administration will change and potentially there could be new executive orders. Sorry, there's a real big echo on my part, so I was having trouble.
Yeah, we hear you
get
clear.
that?
We hear you clearly.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Counselor Paulson. Counselor Beyondich?
Thank you. So I do have a few questions. Sherry, can you explain to me how the sick leave, the banked time, and how this all works? How does it affect the employee as far as having sick leave? And what is the city's portion monetarily if we did not change it?
Sherry, could you, I think that Britt kind of alluded to that earlier, but could you reiterate there for Counselor Beyondich?
Okay, Counselor Beyondich and Council Mayor, I will try to answer your question. I'm a little confused by it, but I will just tell you, for starters, we did not budget this. If we had budgeted COVID, I think we'd be, way out there, leader of the pack. So we did not budget for this. We did not budget for what I call an unfunded mandate by the government. And so, yes, $112,340 was given to us back by CARES. But if we go forward now, we're on our own until administration, the new one, decides to do whatever. We don't know. I do know that, should put this out there so, because there was previous misinformation, but we have a short-term disability insurance. It covers, and everybody's policy right now, except for the fire, is on the 5th day, their contract says that the city pays 100% for 90 days. I know we have a few out on our short-term and going on to long-term, so that the most that an employee is out is 4 days of sick leave, if they have COVID. Now, if they have to quarantine because of a family member, FMLA would apply. And there, they can use their leave time, whether it's personal leave days, or vacation, or sick leave. And it's also my understanding we have a sick leave bank, right? That employees can contribute to a donation bank. So if an employee does run out of sick leave, they can go to that bank and get reimbursed. All I'm saying is we didn't budget for this. So I don't know if that answers your question, because I had a hard time reading what your question was about.
Does that answer your question, Counselor
Thank you.
Beyondich?
It does somewhat. What I'm concerned about is, okay, so the employee actually is only out 5 days. Is that correct?
4 days. On the 5th day, if they have COVID, short-term disability, according to their contract, kicks in, and then our short-term insurance, disability insurance, will kick in on the 14th day. So the city will get reimbursed somewhat for someone out on short-term disability.
So if they go in and get tested, after 4 days, the 5th day, they would be under the short-term disability.
If the employee is sick, the short-term disability and long-term disability applies a benefit only to the employee.
If they are asked to quarantine because of a family member being sick, how does that affect them?
Right now, FMLA would kick in.
And could you just
So
expound?
I guess what I'm asking is, what is the hardship for the employee in the worst case scenario? That's what I'm trying to get at, because we don't have this in our budget at all. So where is the coverage for the employee in any case scenario? What is the worst case scenario for the employee?
The employee would run out of any leave time. FMLA is unpaid leave for 12 weeks. It doesn't need to be consecutive, but in this case, it looks like Corona is consecutive. It's unpaid leave for 12 weeks. An employee can get paid if they use their leave time. That means sick leave, vacation, comp time, personal leave days. So the issue would be is if this quarantine went past 14 days or the employee used up all of their leave benefits or time, they would probably have to take it without pay or go to the donation bank.
Councilor Beyondich?
And thank you. We don't know, I mean, there's no way of knowing how much this could cost the city or impact our budget going forward.
Yeah, we don't know. But let's, Britt,
We do. They can't, the employee can't get any more time than 2,080 hours. So we know that the employee is only going to work that much time in the year. It's whether they're physically here or they're physically at home is the question.
okay, thank you. Councilor Beyondich?
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the question, I think, so say for the sake of argument that, say that we extend it for a period of time, and we revisit it every committee of the whole meeting, and to act on it at the next council meeting, to try to track it as we move forward to determine, how these cases are moving forward, because we don't know. But we still have an obligation to try to track those things and try to maintain a level of performance and safety and security and health of our constituents as well as our employees. So if somebody takes the time off, we don't say for sake, we don't extend it. Someone takes the time off. And so when they're taking the time off, they're using up time paid already. They would use their sick leave, they would use their vacation, because they would have that obligation, the opportunity to do that. But what happens is because this is a pandemic and this is an unusual circumstance, I think Councilor Johnson alluded to the fact that this is unprecedented, right? And so we have to make adjustments moving forward, or we should be looking at making those kind of adjustments. So if all that time is used up, and then all of a sudden the employee is sick because they've used the time up because of COVID, and so they have to go to FMLA, and they've used up all their time, and they're taking the 12 weeks, which is unpaid because they've used all their time on. What benefit is that to the city? You're losing time worked, you're losing performance, you're losing those kind of things. So the actual cost to the city is in employee time and work time and productivity, not necessarily a budget issue with respect to paying out these benefits. So regardless, if this is extended moving forward, it's a leave time that's a consideration and a concern, that if the event that it's all used up, then you have to go to a FMLA, which is unpaid, and the productivity is lost whether you're paid or unpaid. We still lose our productivity, but it's not an actual cost as far as money goes. Is that correct? That's correct. Okay, so thank you. I'll leave that for a moment. Sherry, did you have something you want to add before we go to Councilor Bearable?
Just one. Short-term disability would apply to that employee if they got COVID. And then number two, if that employee has COVID, we're losing productivity because they're not here.
Right, and I think that was my point. We're losing productivity. So if they go on short-term disability, is that paid? Right?
Yes, except for the first 4 days.
Except for the first 4 days. Okay, thank you. And that doesn't just apply to COVID. That applies to any sick, any health issue
Related to the employee.
related to the employee. Correct. Thank you. Councilor Bearable?
Yeah, I'm having, Scott and the rest of the council, I'm having a really hard time with this. We sit here as a council that have a fiduciary responsibility to our taxpayers. We're paying for these benefits already. If they need them, that's when they're supposed to be used. Right now, you can go on disability short-term after 4 days. if you test positive for COVID. Your family is going to be quarantined after you test positive for COVID. It's only 7 days now, the quarantine. It's gone down from the CDC requirements. So if you have to go beyond that for some family stuff, they happen to get it at the end of the 7 days for some reason, and you have to go to FML, those are benefits the city's paying for. We're paying for short-term. We pay for long-term too, right, Jerry? So we're paying for all these benefits. So now I've just had conversation with 3 people over the last 2 days that have come down thinking they have COVID, and they got this new flu that's going around. They've come back negative. They still have the same opportunity if they're really sick to go out on short-term disability. Anybody does. Now, is that fair to the rest of the employees if they get something? If they get anything, any other medical conditions, they need to use it. Why should we have to pay for all these benefits? I can understand that we maybe can give them the first 4 days, but no more than that. Because then their benefits that they've signed up to via contract should kick in. And that's my point. And I'm not trying to be hard on the employees, but they have these things. We've had them for years. We've been paying for them for years. I don't have those benefits for short-term disability. None of the council does. So if we get COVID or something, we're out on our own. We don't get it, even though we're elected officials and employees of the city. Now, I'm not knocking that. If I get sick, I get sick. That's what I have good insurance for. But I don't know whether the employees can understand where I'm coming from. We do not have this budget. It's just like when we get these mandates from the MPC and the rest of them for the sewage treatment plant, other things that we got to find money that we don't have, and we did not budget for this. And this could cost us a lot of money if this continues. Now, the question is, a survey of our employees, how many of them may want to get the vaccine that's coming out or may not? That's going to shorten up everybody's issue on this. And that's coming pretty soon, other than essential workers to open. It's going to open up to everyone. In fact, I think Brian's got some good information later today for us about the vaccine stuff. And I'm not going to mention it because I don't want to get on his bandwagon. So I'm just having a hard time. And we're going to continue to pay for these benefits while they're out with this extra dollars that they're going to be getting that was mandated by the federal government that is now expired. And they may change it on the 20th of the month or there shortly thereafter with the new administration. Then we're stuck back with doing it. I'm just having a hard time with this. So, and I feel for the employees when they get it. I've had family members that have had it, so not in my own immediate family, but relatives. So I know, and they're sick for a period of time. Some of them 2 days and they're fine. Other ones have been weeks. I understand this, but I want to see the employees, if we're going to continue these in the contracts and pay for these, they need to use these benefits. That's my opinion as a responsibility to the taxpayers. We just raised our taxes and everybody takes a look at where their taxes are going next year and how much the valuations are going to have and where your taxes are going. It's unbelievable where they're going in the city of Virginia right now. And we only raised our budget $96,000 for next year. But the taxes are going to more than eat that up on a lot of homeowners. Thank you. Sorry, Scott, I just have to state my opinion.
No, I understand all that. My big concern is we have young families with young kids, and Hibbing, for instance, the schools are shut down. And so we have employees that are staying home 2 to 3 days a week now, switching off with their wives, so they have to go on to FMLA. And the more they use it, what happens when they run out of that? Now we're going to have employees that are going to come to work. That's my concern with that also. And the vaccines now, I've taken a poll on it. Me, myself, I am not taking that vaccine because that has not been on the market long enough. I'm sorry, I'm not doing it. And I'm going to say 3/4 of the people down at Public Works feel the same way. And talking about the vaccines coming in, watching the news again last night, they were supposed to be at 20 million doses right now. They're not even at 4 million. So obviously, the government does not have their stuff in one bag yet pertaining to the vaccinations. And I don't think that's the cure for this. I don't know what the cure is. I'm not a doctor or anything, but that's my main concern is our families. You know, I understand what you're saying, and underneath the guidelines of the short-term disability, the city pays for the first 14 days before the insurance even kicks in. So if we start having guys go out on it, and now you're talking about, we're not covered underneath being quarantined, okay, we're not covered under quarantine, so I'm gonna have to use 2/3 of my wage, and I'm not gonna get paid for the other third. What's gonna stop me from saying, I'm coming to work? There's nobody in my family that's got sick. This is my concern, and it's all of our concerns. You know, because there is gonna be people that are gonna do that because money buys everything. We all know that, like the budget for the city. That's all part of it. You know, and that's one of my big concerns is I don't want people coming to work sick. I've had it once, it's no fun. You say the last 2 days, well, my son is 28 years old and he's on it on 5 weeks now and he's still suffering from it. He's only 28 years old. It depends on how it reacts to you. So it's, you know, that's one of my things. And I understand the budget thing, I do. But if we could go to the end of the month, like Councillor Johnson said, that would be great. That would be moving forward. And we're not asking for it to be in forever. You know, just maybe we could take a look at it maybe in a couple weeks or so from now or whatever. That would be huge, you know. But I do understand, Charlie, where you're coming from. I do.
Okay, thank you. Again, the losses in productivity, but that's a measurable.
We're 4 people short right now in
Right,
Public Works.
it's about productivity and the loss of it. Councillor Beyondich, you had a question? And then we'll go to Councillor Freely, who's patiently been waiting.
I've already spoke. If you want to go to Mr. Friedlieb, that would be fine.
Okay, very good. Councillor Freely? Thank you.
I'm torn between the personal side of it and the fiscal side of it. And you know, we do have a fiduciary responsibility. I agree, Charlie. You know, based on the information we've been provided, you know, it would have cost the city about $14,000 per month to cover the costs of those that have already been affected by this. The potential exists for that to be significantly less as time goes on with the advent of the vaccine and other measures that have been taken into place to take that curve down, as they say, to flatten that curve. But then there's new strains that are coming forth that could make it rise again. So my concern is that we'd be agreeing to be paying for something that we have not budgeted for. And then when you talk in terms of productivity and or loss of services in some other area, that could occur also, which would be detrimental to other areas of the city and people in the city. So I'm having a difficult time in terms of like wanting to provide what I think is reasonable and necessary in terms of extension on behalf of families and employees, but not often are we able to agree to something, to pay for something for which we don't have the money to do so. That's what I'm struggling with. But at the same time, I think like there might be a way, like, I mean, we were looking at it from an individualized basis. It's not the entire AFSCME. It is in a sense, but it's only going to be a person per time. So I think it's reasonable to consider extending it like we did up through the 9th, which is only until this Saturday. There is some risk involved going to the end of January, but I'd say somewhat minimally with regard to the statistics we've been provided. I don't know, Sherry. I mean, I don't want to put it all on you either, but I mean, you're the one that looks at the books and has to deal with the budget and has to pay the bills, and you really can't assure any of us that we in fact can afford to be able to do this on behalf of our employees. And Charlie's right, we do afford them already benefits from which they can draw to cover these kinds of times when they have to be out of work. So I'm torn by this, to be honest with you. I think we have to do what we can on behalf of our employees within reason and within budget. And right now, the reason is questionable and the budget is obviously not available. So I wouldn't be opposed to a reasonable extension, at least to the end of the month, and then revisit it from there to see whether things are in fact coming down or if they're going to be spiking again. If they're spiking again, then we'll be hopeful that the new administration will provide additional monies across the board for cities throughout the country to be able to make up and reimburse us for the costs that we would incur, which hopefully then wouldn't have been that excessive to our city. So it's a tough one, Scott. I mean, we want to provide for our employees in an unprecedented time frame right here that we haven't seen before. And it isn't fair for people to have to burn everything that they've accumulated on behalf of something that we've never seen before. So I'm not opposed to looking at it in an incremental way up until the end of maybe January, then we revisit it there with new statistics, how much it's cost us, what other services may have been impacted by that cost that we incurred, and so on. So I think we need to do something, but it has to be within reason and individually aimed, so to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Freely. So before we go to Councilor Johnson and back to Councilor Beyondich, a quick question, Sherry. So we're talking about the cost to the city with respect to productivity and actual dollars. So is the dollars, do you equate the loss in productivity to dollars, or is there actual dollars that are being expended in addition to the loss of productivity? You get that question?
Yes, Mayor.
Thank you.
Council. I can't say because Scott is out there on the front line. Productivity is lack of service. If we have loss of productivity,
Right.
we have lack of service. That means we don't have a body to fill that truck, to plow, to, you know what I mean, because they're homesick.
And we were reimbursed for the mandate before. The mandate expired. There's no longer reimbursement for the sick leave that was used, which equated to the loss of productivity. But as far as dollars lost, so if we move this, and I agree with Councilor Freely, I agree with Councilor Johnson that extending it to the end of the month and try to to see where the statistical data is moving forward, I think helps because it helps in the long term of the productivity as opposed to the loss of the short-term productivity. Since instead of confining it to a small area, small time frame, you're expanding it to a larger time frame, and that's kind of the way I look at it. So let's set aside for the productivity aspect for it. So are there actual dollars that are lost, actual dollars other than as it equates to productivity?
There will be dollars lost because right now it's unfunded. We don't know what the new administration will do. They may reverse and give us money. So I think it's prudent that you go to the end of the month, like Councilor Freelieb said, and let's see what happens on the 20th.
Yeah. So again, one quick one, the loss of dollars, as far as it costs dollars, the dollars is in productivity. But actual dollars, say taking money out of a contingency fund or taking money out of that, and I know we reimbursed for the loss of the productivity until the expiration of that in December 31st. Now we're no longer being reimbursed for the loss of the productivity. So that's the loss that we're experiencing. Is that correct?
Yes, and Britt, you can jump in. But right now, we don't have too many out that aren't being covered, like with an insurance, short-term disability. I don't think there's anybody out. One out. So the financial loss right now, which would come out of contingency fund, isn't that severe?
Okay, thank you. That answers my question. Councilor Beyondich, please continue, and then we'll go to Councilor Johnson.
Thank you. And I guess what I was alluding to, Councilor Baraboo spoke of, is we have insurance the city has been paying for. And I don't know if that has been utilized. My concern is I'm not opposed to going to the end of the month to see what happens, but at some point we have to make a decision on this. And if this goes in, if we start taking money out of funds to cover different things on healthcare, I mean, how do we answer to our taxpayers for this? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Counselor, go to Counselor Brunzelli, and then we'll go to Counselor Johnson. Counselor Brunzelli.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess first of all, can we try to get our medication up here? Who do we contact? That would help a bunch. And then the other part was like Counselor Friedlib. Let's wait till the end of January and see how it goes. Because if all of our guys, let's say we have 4 guys at the shop, that's all. Everybody's homesick, the wife, the kids. We're gonna have to pay someone to clean our town. Can 4 guys do that? There'll be overtime. They'll never do it.
The city of Virginia has an awesome people that work here. I mean, in all departments,
Yes.
it doesn't matter who it is, And like I said, we're 4 short right now, and only one of them has to do with COVID, and that individual's on short term. The other ones that we have out are just injuries and whatever else that's happening right now. And we are picking up the slack. You know what I mean? We're plowing, we're doing sidewalks right now, we're doing everything. So we're doing it, but I'm just afraid of, it's that FMLA for children and everything else, you know what I'm saying, that goes, sorry about that. That's my biggest fear, you know what I mean, is the families, because the insurance doesn't cover if you have to stay home with a child. It doesn't cover if you have to quarantine because of somebody. It doesn't cover that. And I'm fortunate enough to where I have been able to not have to use my sick leave, but there is a few people that don't have any at all because of whatever circumstances that they were in. So, and like Sherry said, or whatever, in the last month or so, we really haven't had a lot of people had to use it, thank God. So that's been nice. But like I said, it would be really appreciated if we could even extend it to the end of the month. And like you say, revisit it, look at it. You guys know financially what's going on, and hopefully it won't cost the city a dime because everybody's healthy and coming to work.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott. So part of the dollars, as it equates to productivity, could come in the form of some overtime as a result of this, not out of the norm. So thank you. Counselor Johnson, thank you for waiting.
Just to clarify, so as of December 31st, the extra COVID precautions for employees cost the city $0. Is that correct?
Yes. Underneath the government, correct,
We've
Sherry?
been reimbursed for.
Reimbursed for it, yes.
So when it comes to COVID, at this, other than from the 31st forward, the city has invested none of its own money into taking care of our employees.
Other than paying for the short-term disability and
yep.
long-term insurance.
Yep. So I just wanted to clarify, we have a tendency to say, and it's not happening here, but in other projects, we spent, I'll pick on the greenhouse. We spent $180,000 remodeling the greenhouse, and 95% of that was grants and other money. So the city didn't spend all that money. It came from other places. And so I want to clarify that right now, as of the 31st of December, other than what we would normally pay, the city has not invested anything extra into taking care of our COVID employees, from what I'm understanding. And again, this isn't an all or nothing. My motion's going to be that we extend this through the end of the month, through the committee of the whole meeting in February, so we can have the discussion, and then we can vote on it to end appropriately or not end, whatever the appropriate payroll cycle is, so that it's not in the middle of a payroll cycle. I did what Councilor Friedley did, but I divided and I took the total number of time, the 66 employees versus 125, the amount per employee, no matter which way we do it, is under $2,000. And I think this is one of those times where maybe we have to shuffle budgets. Maybe if we have to be paying a lot for COVID stuff, maybe then we look at working with the unions and saying, okay, because we're expending this money to help keep you safe, maybe we reduce training budgets. Maybe we take money from other places that aren't mandatory. You know, obviously, we need to have our folks going to mandatory OSHA trainings, those things. But, you know, it really is all about me being able to look employees in the face and saying, we're doing the best we can to help you through this. And it's, again, it's a month at a time. If you take the total, you know, $14,000, I think we can find $14,000 unless it's a huge spike. And if it's a huge spike, we have a much bigger problems than some employees who are staying home a little extra. So I think that's where I'm coming from, is trying to just provide some comfort and stability for families for the next month until we can, and maybe we need to start looking at budgeting differently. If this keeps going on, maybe that's another something we have to look at, how we do that. I don't know, I'm not a budget person. So to clarify, since I have the floor, I will make a motion, I wrote it down here, that we review the extension of the FFCRA on February 2nd, to vote on the 9th to let it, if we're going to continue it. But we continue this process for the next month so that our employees are confident that we understand. And that doesn't mean that if in the next 2 weeks things spike and all of a sudden 66 people are out again, we can't talk about it then and figure out what's going on. I mean, this isn't an all or nothing. This is just to provide some stability and some trust from our employees that we understand how important this is to them. And if honestly, in 2 weeks, all of a sudden the new virus strain has come and a lot of people are out, then we need to call a special meeting and have a serious discussion about what that looks like and how we move forward. So, Pam, was my motion clear?
Just to clarify, Councillor Johnson, is that the motion is going to be extended through February 2nd, is that correct?
Yeah, that would be the first committee of the whole meeting.
Yep, I understand. Okay, thank you. Pam? Pam, are you on the line?
Yes, Mayor, I had to get my, yes, I did get the motion. Thank you.
Okay, the motion is made by Councillor Johnson. Is there support?
I'll support that.
Support by Councillor Freelieb. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Baraboo.
Yeah, Steve, I can make myself available to do this if you drop it back by till the 26th, which is our next end of the council meeting. We can extend it then, but you're carrying it 2 more weeks beyond, and we've already extended it 9 days already. I can't go along with February 2nd, but I can compromise and go to the 26th. We have our next full council meeting to look at this. My concern is, how do we tell an employee if they have a diabetic problem, a heart attack, or something? They got to use all their stuff. How do we tell them that they're not eligible to have the same benefits as the COVID? That's a hard thing to do. You know, and they're finding they don't know how many people are immune right now because they don't know the asymptomatic people that have had it. They don't have a clue how many in this country have had it. The guess is over 30% have had it already. So this whole number thing may go down, and Scott is right on that. It may go down. I'm thinking, well, this new strain of stuff is not as virulent as they're making out the news media. It's not. They're saying it's the same drugs are going to cover and help, and they're talking that the vaccines are going to cover these new strains also. But I can compromise and go to the 26th, but I can't go to the 9th of February because that's when it would be. It's 2 more weeks extra. So we're already providing a month if we go to the end of the month. Correct? Because we carried it from the 31st of December to the 9th. Yeah. And we can extend it to the 26th. I can compromise and do that.
Okay, so just before, you alluded to the fact that, what we do with people who are not COVID-related cases. Well, during this emergency order, that same scenario held true.
I understand
right?
that.
If
I
you
don't
were-
agree with the emergency order.
I understand that, but I'm just looking for a clarification, that's all, Counselor Bearable. So that's what, so what happened before, during, so this is related to the COVID, the coronavirus thing, so thank you. Counselor Johnson.
So I'm not willing to change my motion just because the inauguration is on the 20th, and it would give time. And again, it doesn't mean we can't discuss it at any of the meetings between now and then. I just want to give our staff the security of knowing that they're taken care of for the next month. And everything you're saying, Counselor Baraboo, just to me reaffirms my decision I'm making, that if numbers are going to go down, then this becomes less and less of a problem over the next month. If the vaccine is going to cover the new strain, this becomes less and less of a problem over the next month. So I don't anticipate, if the line was trending up like it was in November, I can see this being more of a financial concern for the city. And again, if we get 2 weeks out at the next committee of the whole meeting and Sherry and Britt come and say, we've got 26 people that have all of a sudden gotten the new strain and we're out, then we need to sit down and have a discussion about that. This is more about, for me, the reassurance to the staff that you don't have to worry for the next month. We'll discuss it for sure on the 2nd, and then either it expires on whatever the payroll date is, or we continue it. So I think basically it's the psychology of it for the staff, so they can feel comfortable that we're going to keep an eye on it. It's not going to just be dropped from obviously Britt and Sherry are going to be looking at Brian, and all the rest of the department heads are going to be looking at this probably every day. Who's out? Are we seeing a trend? Is there a cluster in one of the departments? So I'm with all due respect, I'm not willing to change the dates.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion, Counselor Freely?
I think the risk is going to be relatively minimal, just given the trend that we're at right this point in time, that we're going to not incur significant costs and real costs per se, more so than productivity costs, if that makes any sense. So I would support the motion as it stands.
Okay, thank you very much. Counselor Paulson, any questions or comments regarding the motion and the second on the floor to extend this through February 2nd?
No, I'm comfortable with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Beyondich?
Yes, I do have another question.
Go ahead.
How many hours are banked for the employees on sick, or if they have to take off? How many banked sick hours are available?
The maximum allowed to accrue, is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Sherry, could you answer Counselor Beyondich's question, please?
Sure, that's based on contract. So the fire have 720 hours. LELS has 240 hours. MAPE has 240 hours. And ASME has 160.
Did you get that, Counselor
Thank
Beyondich?
you. Has anybody used or gone into their banked hours for this?
Anybody who had to do the 2/3, because there is a cap on this, you can only use $2,000 during the 80 hours, and then during the emergency FMLA, you can only use $5,000. So anybody that hit those caps or took any of the extended FMLA had to use 1/3 of their own pay to make up their wage.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, there's a motion on the floor and a second. Any further discussion? Counselor Baraboo?
Yeah, I just have a concern with that length of time, Steve. I hate to say that. We can reenact it on the 26th, so what the heck is a big deal that you got to carry it through to February 9th? If we get a huge spike in this, we could end up with having to contract services out to the city if we don't have enough employees to cover our work. I don't see that happening, but you never can tell. I've seen that happen back a number of years ago where we had to do some contracting, just because we were too short of employees. We ended up with a number of people that were out, and we had to do some contract work. Then we're paying for that also. You can't compromise on that motion. I'm gonna have to vote no against it because I think that's 6 weeks instead of a month. When I look at it, because we already extended it from December 31st through the 9th. And now if we extend it to the 26th, that's a month time. Otherwise, it's 6 weeks. You can't act at a committee of the whole in a second to dump it unless you call the emergency council meeting. So that's my position. I just have to look at all sides and all employees. And it's not fair to some of the employees if they don't get COVID. Did we have anybody, Sherry, sick during the period from December 31st to the 9th with COVID? No names, just, did we still have some people out there who were receiving the extra dollars?
Yeah, I have one for sure.
One for sure, okay. So that's not a huge number. I wish you'd compromise, Steve, as a counselor, and just, because we can reenact it on the 26th if we want to carry it further. I don't have a problem with that if, I do have a problem going an extra 2 weeks. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Baraboo. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Pam, would you please
No.
take, okay, thank you. Pam, please take the roll call.
Baraboo,
No,
Friedlieb,
Yes.
Paulson,
Aye.
Beyondich,
No.
Johnson,
Yes.
Baranzelli, Cuffey.
Aye. Motion passes 5-2. Thank you. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, so we'll revisit that on February the 2nd. So next item on the agenda, Britt?
Can we go back up to item number 1, with Brian Percott, regarding residential parking on 10th Street South?
Thank you. Mr. Percott, we did receive your letter. Come on up if you would, please, and come to the podium. Make sure that the green light is on. We know where you're at. We did receive your letter at our packet this morning, so welcome to the committee of the whole meeting, and could you just kind of give us a little synopsis of your issue? Is it on? Green? Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brian Percott. I live here in Virginia on the 400 block on 10th Street South. And directly across from us is a nursing home, the Carefree Living Center, who, since I've lived in this house, I've had parking issues from day one of heavy traffic due to this place and poor design in the building structure of not having a parking lot. But I myself suffer from tendinitis and all kinds of other problems. I could go on for a while. Both neighbors on the sides of me are both handicapped and disabled. They also have young kids. I've seen them in cold weather, in snowy conditions, have to walk over a block just to get to their house, which I feel is kind of unfair, considering that we pay good money to live here and we should be able to park in front of our own houses. I don't think it's fair that just because they forgot to build a parking lot, and I have pictures of just the whole block riddled with cars and nowhere to park. And I also have my landlord here with me today, who can also confirm all these things. I'm just asking for help for me and the neighbors, because they also have complaints, and they also said that they would also stand up if needed to be about this issue. But maybe residential signs, parking only, or even handicap signs, but just something for the people that live here we'd just like to be able to park in front of our house. hurts sometimes. You know, I've slipped and fell because of uneven grounds and our alleys aren't the best. You know, so it's not like you can park in the back all the time and it's not plowed as well as the front. You know, I take care of, I do the sidewalk for everybody. You know, I make sure it's nice and cleared off for people. You know, I kind of like to take care of things. And I guess that's my main concern.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Percat, for coming forward. I know that many of us are aware of the parking issues along 10th Street. It's come up periodically over time, particularly in the wintertime now. When this project came to fruition, we met with all the residents, and so did the builders of the Carefree Living, for both respect to where they're going to locate it, the design that's being built. They made some adjustments based on suggestions from the neighborhood there of how that, so they did do their due diligence. There was not room for a parking lot there. I know there's some parking in the back.
Yes.
And so it stands the way it is, and based on input from the community, the residents surrounding that community, that's what we're with now. That's the end result of that. So with respect to your parking, so what you're saying is, are they employees or visitors, or are they long-term parkers there?
The above, sir.
All day long?
I've literally watched the employees take their cars from the back parking lot and go park in front just because they know it. I don't know why, but I've seen it.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's move to the council for some comments and questions. First, Councilor Bearable.
Mr. Percat, I happen to be the chair of the Street and Alley Committee. Streets in Virginia are for public parking. Wintertime, and you can still park on the opposite side in front of the nursing home. It's not, or I shouldn't say nursing home, Carefree Living. You have to move your car every day in the wintertime anyway. Is there no off-street parking in that alley? I believe there is. From driving through there, there's a lot of off-street parking. People have tons of vehicles. I mean, that's what happens on streets, but we have to move stuff. Even if we were to put resident-only parking, we can't enforce it. It's not legal to enforce it on public streets. We have some signs in town, but if somebody wants to park there, they can't get ticketed in those areas because it's a non-enforceable thing under the state unless it's a handicapped spot. And anybody can go on those as long as they got a handicap sticker. Once we start this, we're going to have requests all over town to look at this. We've already had other requests. We turned down 90% of these requests. Okay, I'm going to be honest with you straight up front. And I'm sorry that you have some issues with walking, but it sounds like you got a place to park in the back. You know, I would suggest you park in the back if you have access to your apartment in the back. I thought that landlords had to provide off-street parking for individuals by our ordinances that we have out there for rental properties.
There is. It's just, with my condition, I can't walk, or it's hard to walk on uneven grounds. So the way that our alleys are, they're so rough. I mean, my bumper is cracking, broken because of our alley.
I understand that. I live out where there's an alley too that.
I can't walk in that, sir.
You know, I'm sorry that there's a lot of people in this community, there's older people, but they're in the same boat as you are.
I literally watched the guy in a wheelchair fall over.
I'm sorry, once we start a can of worms like this, it goes to all over the city of Virginia where people don't obey the parking rules that we have set up in the city of Virginia. And I can't, as chairman, present this of the committee to the council if it gets referred to my committee. I cannot do that to make exceptions. You can apply for a temporary handicap spot if you want to, but if anybody else on the block has a sticker, they can use that spot.
Well, that's fine. At least I know I'd have a spot.
No, you wouldn't have a spot. That's what I'm trying to tell you. If anybody else in that block has a handicap sticker, they can use the spot. They're not designated for individuals. That's what I'm trying to tell you. No handicap spot in Virginia is designated for one individual. Okay? Anybody with a sticker on their car can use it. That's what I'm trying to tell you. That's the state law. So there's no way that we can personally guarantee that you'll have a spot to park on the street. We can't do that. We just can't do it because we're violating the public process for parking in roads. Simple as that. That's all I have to say. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Baraboo. I'll reserve my comments. We'll first go to Councilor Freely.
Yeah, I guess I'm of the mind that, we're getting a city planner soon, which I think is a good thing, because a facility of the size that was put on that lot where the Horseman School was placed, with little to no parking availed to potential visitors for a multi-unit facility, I think is a legitimate concern for the residents of that area, because it does impact the coming and going from a residential home. A better planned facility would have been a little bit smaller in terms of unit size and provided on-site parking for that facility, in my opinion, not anticipated utilizing city parking spaces in front of residences to accommodate the visitors of the multi-unit facility. So I think in the future, when we look in terms of like what we're tearing down and what we're building, there has to be some foresight in terms of like how it's going to accommodate the comings and goings, especially of multi-unit types of facilities, such as the one that they have across the street from them. I agree, Charlie, that there could be a can of worms of sorts that could be opened for other residents. They're going to, be concerned with other issues that are happening throughout the city. But I can't right off the top of my head think in terms of any other multi-unit facility such as that there on 10th Street and 5th Avenue that essentially has no parking for people to come and visit the facility. Most other facilities seem to have their own parking spaces on their own campus that don't impose on the residents right across the street from the facility. So I don't know, in my opinion, I think there was a mistake made to allow the size of the facility that's on that lot without any kind of on-site parking that does in fact then impose on the residents right across the street from it. So I'm a little concerned about that. And I think that this is a legitimate complaint or a legitimate concern to try and rectify that in what other manner we could potentially do so, whether it's residential parking signs or, because I just don't see multiple places throughout the city where that's going to be a case. Most of them that I can think of have self-contained parking areas on campus for visitors that are coming and going. But this one does not, and it's right in the midst of a residential community, residential area. So it is going to be imposing on them and impacting and intruding on them to the point where I think some concern should be taken in terms of accommodations on behalf of those residents that live there, as opposed to affording all of that space to the facility and the people coming and going from the facility. That just doesn't seem fair to me, but that's where I'm at. I'm not exactly sure what the answer would be if it's specifically for you, Brian.
For all my neighbors, sir.
Yeah, and I just
talked
don't,
to all of them.
I don't know that we can extend it through the entire block, but
Right.
Because then Charlie's right, there are gonna be other areas in town where people will go, hey, what about us too? Because we have this issue that's near us as
Immediately,
well.
like even directly in front of it would be fine. Like
Yeah.
just the primal busiest hotspot, that I'd be fine with just that even.
Yeah, I would look more at an individualized thing, since you're the one making that request, and,
That is a hot zone right there.
yeah. So anyhow, I guess I'm at that point where I just think a mistake was made to allow a facility of that size with no real parking availed for the facility itself. And it is imposing on the people that live right across the street from it. So I'm not opposed to individually looking at some accommodation on behalf of Mr. Percott and maybe other neighbors as well, but I think a mistake was made. Thank you.
Okay, we have a couple lights on. We're going to have the landlord speak as well. I think we have somebody on the. But just to your point about that there was a mistake made with respect to the building itself. There was a lot of planning that went on in there, just for your edification, in that there was some discussion specifically about the parking there. and there was, they bought a house next door and a place in the back where the employees are to park in the back, not in the front, in front of the house. This was an obligation that Carefree Living has agreed to when they met with the residents, and they met with us about providing parking in the back, and there is room back there for parking. Now, when somebody comes to visit on occasion, which isn't too often now because of the COVID, but there are certain spots as you come in to drop off.
Correct.
There are some spots available there that for people who wanted to park there for a very short period of time with a 15, 20, half-hour, minutes or half-hour to deliver groceries or whatever, to pick up something for a dog or whatever. That's what that was for, to try to alleviate,
They've been telling people, sorry, sir.
to alleviate the parking in that regard. So please continue, and then we'll move to the other counselors that are waiting
They've
to
been
speak.
telling people to not park there. They've been saying it's for drop-off for semi-trucks and emergency vehicles.
Right.
These are coming from the guests that are visiting. I'd ask them, why don't they park there? And they say that we're not supposed to.
Right. I think that's a management issue, something we could maybe communicate with them moving forward, to try to alleviate the parking down there. Whether we make a motion at this point in time to deny a request for permit parking there are things that we can do moving forward. So I have more other comments to make, but I'll reserve those till the end. But before we go to the other counselors, I see your landlord was raising his hand. Sir, would you please come forward and please state your name for the record, and welcome to the committee of the whole meeting.
Hello, my name is Mike Samich. I live in Duluth. I purchased the property in 2016, and it did have off-street parking with the property. There was a parking pad and a garage, which I felt would be adequate, but I've had working people in both units, and they have jobs, so there's consequently 2 cars per unit. So I can provide parking for 3. I noticed that the parking in the front is very congested, and there is a long entry into that building parallel to 10th Street. If they would just take some of that green space and park cars on an angle, they could probably fit 10 cars in there without too much difficulty and provide parking for their customers and their visitors. That's all I'd like to add.
Well, thank you very much, sir. If you just want to have a seat, and then we may recall you for a moment.
Yep.
Thank you. Let's first go to the line. Counselor Beyondich has a question, and then we'll go to Counselor Johnson, and then over to Counselor Baraboo, and then Counselor Barnzelli. So Counselor Beyondich first.
Thank you. I'm wondering why they wouldn't have off-street parking if that property came when the gentleman purchased it. It had parking there. Isn't this similar to the school situation where we made it residential parking only? And this facility should have had a parking lot in mind for not only all the employees, but the potential of the visitors going to see their loved ones. There should be parking for them, but our housing that's across the street, taxpayers, I mean, that should be parking for them as well. So I'm not sure where this whole thing, if it was in the planning stages of the facility, that they didn't plan for parking. Just seems kind of curious to me. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to clarify for you, Counselor Beyondich, there was plans for parking, was parking in the back. There is space back there for the employees to park. I think that moving forward, I think it would behoove us to maybe have a street and alley meeting and bring the management representatives from the Carefree Living to come forward and see if we can talk about maybe some alternatives to alleviate the parking there. I know that you're looking for some kind of relief, and so let's try to work through that today with respect to that. Thank you. We'll go to Counselor Barnzelli and then to Counselor Johnson. Counselor Barnzelli.
Thank you, Mayor. Brian, question, do you know anybody in Gilbert?
You, sir.
Is that your father?
It is. Well, which one? Dennis?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my uncle.
Brian.
Oh, Brian, that's me. Yep. Jared is my dad. And Dennis is my uncle, Uncle Joey, the one in the wheelchair.
Yeah.
And then I have Jan, who was the main person for the city of Gilbert.
Yep, I know.
Yep.
I knew him for many years.
He's an excellent guy.
What block do you live on, 10th Street?
400 block, sir.
The 400 block?
Directly in front of it.
By Horseman, by the old school?
Yep, directly in front.
Well, is that calendar parking, or is
Yes,
it
it is, sir.
always, it goes back and forth?
Yep, alternates every day.
Every day in the winter and every bi-weekly in the summer.
Yep.
Well, I live on 11th Street, south side. If you want to park behind my house, you could put 10 cars there, I'll let you park. You have to walk. So I think that's a good idea. If Councillor Baraboo, if we have this to Street and Alley to discuss this, we would invite you and probably have the chief here, chief of police, and
Over here too.
And people from Carefree Living have a discussion.
yes,
Wouldn't be opposed to that.
we'll get a hold of them. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bronzelli. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. What has Carefree Living told you about the situation?
They just keep yelling at me saying it's public parking, sir, deal with it.
Have you emailed them or had any written communication with them?
I try not to because they're kind of argumentative and
So I'm just looking, I pulled it up on Google Maps, and unfortunately, it's an old map, so it doesn't have the building in there, but I do know that there is a lot of behind parking there.
yes,
However, if there were houses along that street, you would have the same problem.
yes.
Is this an all-year-round issue, or is it just
Year-round.
when they're?
And when the COVID wasn't going on, it's 100 times worse. There was cars on all sides of the blocks on every single street.
So I'm kind of in agreement with Councilor Baraboo. I live on 8th Street, and I use my back alley parking because there are days where I would have to park on 2nd on the 200 block and there's nothing around my house. I would encourage you to get some written communication because you may be dealing with employees who have nothing to say about what's going on at Carefree Living, and you should be dealing with administration or the owners because the employees that you are probably addressing are probably tired and they don't want to deal with some crabby neighbor.
Oh, yeah.
So I would really encourage you to contact corporate and get some information from them about it. They may not know that their employees are not parking where they belong. I would also say that if there's if there's people who are visiting, I can't imagine at this point they're staying more than an hour or two, which means the traffic in front of the house, the cars in front of your home should be rotating out regularly. And if it's a snowbank issue on your side of the street, that is something we can address. We can look at it. It is the responsibility of the property owner, not the renters, to keep the sidewalks passable.
I do that all myself.
Yeah, I understand that, but it comes down to the property owning, our ordinance say it's the property owner, and if you have an agreement with your landlord that they reduce your rent for taking care of your property, that's great. But, you know, I'm concerned that there's other issues that aren't being addressed here. If Carefree Living's not managing their sidewalks, that is something that the city can address with them directly, that, you know, you do need to keep these plowed and open. Even if they had a parking lot, it's still going to be an issue. I used to work for AEOA, and they have a quarter of a block worth of parking there, and employees parking on the street is still an issue. So I'm sympathetic to your challenges, but they're not unique to the city, and that's why I would really encourage you, one, to contact Carefree Living. Spectrum Healthcare is the company directly, and address in writing your issues. And I'd caution you to not address employees directly, because at some point it could become a problem for you, and I don't want to see that for you. I would go up, and if you need help getting a hold of Spectrum, get a hold of Britt, our city administrator. She will be more than happy to make those calls. But and you're lucky. Your 10th Street's a nice wide street.
I love it.
There are other streets in this town that, with snowbanks and such, you're lucky if you can get a Cooper through, let alone an ambulance. So I appreciate you coming in today, and I would encourage you to follow up with Britt if you need some contact information. She can get you to the right people. And then If you're not getting the help you need, let her know and we can, I'm, at this time, I'm with Charlie. I'm not comfortable referring it to the committee yet because we haven't had any discussion with the Carefree folks. I would like to have that first, and this could all go away. And at the end of my block, there's a group home, and every 3 months or so, they need a reminder because of this turnaround of the staff that they can't park in front of their garage because it blocks the sidewalk. And that's usually done by a quick phone call from a police officer who just says, hey, you know, you have to pull up further. And it's not a problem anymore. So I would encourage you to try those routes first before we call another meeting and get a bunch of people in a room and have the Carefree people go, we had no idea. So that's my suggestion is work with Britt on contacting corporate.
Okay, I'm going to make a comment here. You know, we have an obligation to all our citizens to address every issue that comes before this committee whole meeting and not to push it off on you to do something that you've already done. You've already contacted the employees. We have a responsibility to respond, to do what we can to help facilitate this. Whether successful at that or not, you're asking for some relief. I think we have an obligation to do that. And how we do that depends upon whether it goes to a committee or whether it doesn't go to a committee. But for me, is when this facility was built, we had significant discussion with the builders about that, about the parking in the back, about the potential issues with on the residents. The residents had an opportunity to chime in. And the corporate people, Mr. Monticelli, said that if there's any issues at all, contact him and he'll try to address it for us. So I think we have an obligation to maybe contact Carefree Living, to contact Mr. Monticelli or corporate, to talk about, you know, those issues, whether it stays within our administrative process to discuss that, to get that corrected, or if it needs to go to a committee later on down the road. But I think we have to do something to help facilitate this for you. And so that's where I'm at, because, you know, I mean, you've had contact with the employees. I mean, your neighbors, you know, I don't want all your neighbors to get together and then all of a sudden it becomes an issue where we could probably call management, because they've offered that to us during the course of the time in which this was being built. If you have a concern, if you have a comment, have a problem with any issue with respect to this building, give us a call, we'll come in and we'll work it out. So we can do that, and we can work with our city manager, which you get that done. I'm not going to say anything more. Councilor Bearable.
Yeah, your first name is Brian, right?
Correct.
Okay. Brian, I sat here on the building of that facility as a city councilor, and the mayor is absolutely correct. We sat down and had in-depth discussion. There's 26 parking spaces behind that building. Their employees, they don't have more than 8 to 10 at a time there, so they're open spaces. They were told, and they agreed, that they would use those spaces for residents, visitations, and their employees, if there wasn't room, would park out on 5th Avenue and 4th Avenue and walk in. We had all kinds of discussion. They would leave 10th Street alone for their employee parking. We need to go back and revisit that, because I sat on that whole conversation as, at that time, I was also a chairman of Street and Alley. And we wanted to make sure that the residents weren't affected, but now we understand they're being affected. I don't have a problem setting another meeting, but the mayor's right. You stay out of it. Let us handle it. We'll have Britt contact. I think the ownership or management has changed over in that facility. So we need to reiterate what needs to happen from our original conversations way back when this facility was built. Because we were assured that they weren't going to have that many employees to plug up the horse, because they'd be changing at shift time, and they'd have, I believe it was 8 to 10 employees, if I remember right. And there's 26 spots behind to park.
It's empty all the time.
Yeah, so that's what we need to do. We need to reiterate their employees need to park in the back of that facility, so it frees up the front streets for the residents that live on that street. So, and if Britt can't get a conversation, or we may do it all at once, get them in here with us to discuss this, however they want to do it. We'll leave it up to our administrator, and if she needs to, she'll contact me and we'll set up a meeting and notify the residents of the meeting. Okay? And we will do that.
Awesome.
Promise you we'll do that. and I don't renege on my promises.
So I think the issue is, can we refer this back to staff to get in contact with the Carefree Living folks and have a conversation with them about it, how that process move forward? You can work it out, whatever you deem appropriate. Is that agreeable to all the council here today?
Make sure you get your information to Britt.
Will do, sir.
Okay, Councilor Barnzelli?
Thank you, Mayor. Brian, do you live in the third house from Fourth Avenue?
Yes,
Next to Rose?
yes.
I've been in that kitchen as many times as I've been in my house. You got a good house there.
And I love that house, and I try to keep it as clean as I can. I'm super clean.
She
So
parks.
So
she
your landlord
parks-
made a good investment.
Oh, yes.
She parks.
Yes. Yep. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we move, Councilor Paulson, any comments, any concerns or issues with moving this to staff to address?
Thank you, Mayor. No, I think that would be the prudent thing to do, and I think I agree and concur that it would probably be a good first step to contact Carefree Living and just try to make some arrangements with the employees parking where they're designated. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Beyondich.
No, I think that pretty much covers it for me as well. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So we'll just have you direct you to work with staff and whatever our city administrator needs from the city council, she'll let, whether if it's a committee or whatever the case may be, to try to, this could be a simple solution, easily, readily solved based upon our, contracting agreement and, their offer moving forward. So we have the history behind that, so we can utilize that when making contact with corporate Carefree. So we're a Spectrum Health, whoever that is. So does that make sense to you, Mr. Samich? That's fine. Britt, we all good? Okay, thank you very much. We'll be in contact with you. I'll make sure before you leave, if you leave your contact number with either Britt or Pam downstairs in the clerk's office, and maybe you too as well, sir. Thank you very much. Okay, take care. Next item.
The next item is the 2021 Rams dues.
Okay, thank you. $950. Do we get a bang for our buck? I think we do. Councilor Bearable, you sit on the Rams board.
We absolutely get a bang for our buck on this. Rams has been working diligently, and especially on a number of issues, school issues, and also on broadband issues, and they've accomplished a great deal of getting grants, other things, get better broadband, et cetera, up here. That's not the only thing. They've been very active with their lobbying individuals at the state legislature, making sure things get through for the 7-county area up here. The Rams covers 7 counties and 72,000 people, so it's well worthwhile at $950 in my book.
Okay, thank you. Are you going to make a motion?
I certainly will. I would move that we approve the dues to Rams for 2021.
I'll support.
Moved by Councilor Bear.
Support.
Moved by Councilor Bearable, supported by, was it Councilor Paulson?
Yes, Mayor.
It's moved by Councilor Bearable, supported by Councilor Paulson, to pay the Rams dues and annual dues of $950 for 2021. Is there any further discussion?
Just one more point.
Councilor Bearable.
Rams has also started some other side groups off this. They have the mayor's group that have input into Rams, and they also have a school superintendent's meetings that put input into Rams. So that's something that has just been done in the last, year and a half, 2 years?
Yeah, we've been meeting on a monthly basis at Rams.
Yeah, so this is an important issue also, so they get the feel of the whole area.
Okay, thank you very much, Councilor Bearable. So it's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is adopt resolution authorizing applying for a Department of Iron Range Resources grant for the demolition of the current Miners Memorial Building.
Okay, thank you. Brian, did you want to chime in at all? Brian Silber, our Park and Rec Director.
If needed to answer any questions, I'd be happy to do so.
Okay, thank you very much. And the resolution is, I should have looked at the amount. What's the amount of request for the demo?
They do not want us to put dollar amounts in the resolutions anymore, but at the
Okay, well,
dollar amount was about 450,000. what we were
and it
asking
could
for.
even be more, who knows? Okay, so looking for a motion or to adopt the resolution authorizing the application to the DIR grant for the demolition of the miners project. Counselor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Would this be the fourth phase of all because we had the Ewens Field demolition and then the redevelopment, so this would be like the fourth part of it? Where does it fit in?
It's actually phase 3,
Phase 3, okay, of the plan, all right.
the plan, yep.
Gotcha.
The Owens Field demo, the MEC facility, and then the redevelopment project.
Okay, that's what I was looking for. Thank you. I will make a motion to approve the application and acceptance of DIRR funds for the miners facility.
Counselor Johnson makes a motion to adopt the resolution applying for the DIRR grant for demolition of the miners memorial building. Is there support? Support by Counselor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We're going to move to item 6, Britt, and likely it's going to be a closed meeting. So before we close the meeting, we'll ask everybody from the public to vacate the city council chambers at this time. Unless you've had something else you'd like to add to your presentation, Steve and Tanya? No, thanks for having us. Looks like we're good. Exciting. Can I bring my own putter?
If you so desire.
Okay, very good. Let's take a quick break before we go to closed session. Thank you very much, and thanks for sitting in on the committee of whole meeting. Appreciate it.
Britt,